Today I'm out here in Los Angeles taking a look at the 2022 Honda Civic hatchback. Yes, they're calling this a hatchback, even though I would really call this a liftback or a sportback because the hatch is certainly more horizontal than it is vertical. This is based off of, quite logically, the all-new 11th generation Honda Civic, and there's a big reason that they're bringing a sportback to the US, liftback, hatchback, whatever you want to call it, and they're improving upon the last model. With tons of companies abandoning compact sedans and compact hatchbacks, Honda has really been left this market entirely to themselves. A full third of compact sedans are now Hondas, and they say that apparently 25% of all Honda Civics in the 10th generation came off the lot as the hatchback model, and that's why they're bringing it back for 2022. Up front you can see that it is pretty similar to the Honda Civic sedan that you've already seen on the channel, but the front bumper does get a very slight tweak. This upper section right here between the hood and this gray section has been made a little bit sharper, a little bit angrier, but it is pretty similar to the silver sedan right next to me. And then we get a honeycomb grille right here in the middle, mimicking what's going on inside. But the headlights, the turn signals, and the lower portion of the bumper, they're essentially the same. For the 11th generation Civic, the sedan and the hatchback are more closely related than they ever have been before. They use exactly the same doors, the same fenders, and a lot of the same roof line as well. In fact, pretty much everything in front of this part of the vehicle is exactly the same in the sedan and in the hatchback. They've removed the large and somewhat bulky hinges from the hatch. The hatch definitely has a very raked profile to it. The glass is certainly more horizontal than it is vertical, and I have to say the shape of this vehicle reminds me an awful lot of the BMW X4 or the X6, or honestly the Accord Cross Tour as well. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section. This certainly is a more style-forward hatch than we've seen from Honda before. Versus the Civic sedan, this is about 5 inches shorter, and most of the difference happens right back here behind the rear wheel. So we have a shorter rear overhang to keep the dimensions a little bit tighter and a little bit more suitable for Europe. This generation of the hatch is no longer built in Europe. In fact, it's built in Indiana, but it is destined for the European market, and that's why they decided to make this a little bit shorter. Wheel options are a little bit different on the hatch than the sedan. We get 16, 17, or 18-inch wheels depending on the trim. This is, again, the top-end trim, so we get this unique 18-inch design. I have to say I like the one on the Civic sedan just a little bit more. I've got to say Honda has a really good wheel game. These are one of my new favorite wheels for 2022. It's a 10-spoke wheel, but it's designed to sort of look like a 5-spoke wheel at first glance. We have these 5 silver spokes and then these charcoal spokes that fork out right there. This is a really cool design. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section. At least for the moment, there are going to be just 2 engines offered in the Civic hatch, but expect higher performance engines at some point in the future. The base engine is a 158 horsepower 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. You'll find that in the LX trim and the Sport trim. EXL and Sport Touring get this engine. It's a 1.5-liter turbo producing 180 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. You'll notice that they're not just calling this the Touring trim, they're calling it the Sport Touring trim in the hatchback because theoretically the hatchback is the slightly sportier variant of the Civic. And this is the only variant of the Civic that's going to be available with the 1.5-liter turbo or the 2-liter engine with the manual transmission. In the Civic sedan, it's CVT only. We don't have fuel economy numbers for the hatch just yet, but the sedan ranges between 33 and 36 miles per gallon depending on the engine that you get. Expect this to come in a little bit lower if you choose the 6-speed manual. Back to the hatch again. Obviously, the big reason to buy the hatch over the sedan is for the cargo capacity. We find 24.5 cubic feet of storage space back here, which is nearly double what we find in the sedan. Interestingly enough, this is actually a little bit less cargo room than we found in the outgoing model because the Civic hatch is actually a little bit shorter than it's been before. Honda still gives us a roller cargo cover, but it's a little bit different than most of the competition. It rolls to the side rather than right back there towards the seats. Under the load floor, we still find a spare tire. One definite reason that you might want to get the Civic hatch over some of the crossover competition is for the practicality of this cargo area. 25 cubic feet is more than we find in a decent number of really small crossovers. Front seat comfort logically is going to be about the same as the Civic sedan. We have the same multi-way power driver seat in this particular trim, but an odd twist is that the Sport Touring does not get an adjustable lumbar support, which I do find an odd omission. We have a tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion, and the entire interior, including the ceiling here, is the same as the sedan. Just the back seats get a little bit of a change. The big change out back, of course, is that this is a hatchback, but it's not your traditional hatchback because it still has the same roof line that we find in the sedan. So if you come in closer, you'll really see what's going on here. I don't have a whole lot of headroom compared to something boxy like a Volkswagen Golf. My head definitely touches the ceiling. That's because interior dimensions are shockingly similar between this and the sedan. The big change happens right back there in the hatch, and of course the rear seat backs can now be lowered from inside the vehicle and from the cargo area. If you put these seats down, you'll definitely have more room in here than you might find in some subcompact crossovers, because remember, this is compact, so it's going to be a little bit wider than something like a Hyundai Venue. Let's hop inside and see what the interior looks like. Again, the interior is largely shared with the regular Civic sedan. So we find basically the same dashboard going on here with this honeycomb texture that runs side to side. There are air vents behind it, but just over here in this area and then over there on that side, nothing is contained in the middle. It's simply decorative. We have the same infotainment systems, a 7-inch and a 9-inch touchscreen infotainment system. Only the 9-inch system is going to give you wireless Apple CarPlay. Below that, we have dual zone automatic climate control. That's also reserved only for the upper end trims. 2 USB ports down there. One is an input, Qi wireless charging mat there, and then a very different center console experience than the previous generation Civic. This one is much more traditional Honda, I think a little bit more practical as well. We have padded center armrest right there, 2 large cup holders, a pretty traditional gear shifter. We don't have one of Honda's Hunt and Peck shifters, which I did think was a little bit interesting. I'm surprised they gave us a regular shifter there. Moving over to the dashboard, we have the same 10.25-inch LCD instrument cluster. This offers the same configuration ability that we find in the Civic sedan. If you want to know more about this, be sure and check out my Civic sedan video. You'll find that on the channel already. We then have a 3-spoke steering wheel, also a new design with paddle shifters on the back, although keep in mind this does still have a CVT, so this is not going to be a DCT or traditional automatic transmission. Obviously, if you got the manual transmission, you wouldn't have paddles because you'd have a shifter right there in the center. As you'd expect out of a new Honda, the new Civic is available with a ton of new driver assistance technologies. Most of them are going to be standard, like radar adaptive cruise control, their aggressive lane centering system, collision mitigating braking, which is what they call their autonomous emergency braking software. We also get road departure mitigation, which is a little unusual in this segment. Most manufacturers don't have that even available. We also have new airbag technology in the Civic. Blind spot monitoring is finally available, as is rear cross traffic detection, so no Honda lane watch system in this vehicle anymore. We also get traffic jam assist and low speed braking, but a lot of those features, blind spot monitoring, etc., they're only going to be found in the top trims of the Civic, not in the base model. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't know how much the hatchback will set you back, but you can expect that it's going to be a little bit more expensive than the sedan. The 2022 sedan starts at just over $21,000, plus, of course, the pesky destination charge, tax, title, license, etc. I would expect that this is probably going to start somewhere around $22,000 to $22,500. Keep in mind that not all the features that you've seen on this model are going to be standard. The 9-inch infotainment system, cross-traffic detection, wireless CarPlay, the Bose audio system, those are only available in the top-end Sport Touring trim, and you will be able to buy it in this really aggressive and I think very attractive blue paint. This was formerly only reserved for the Type R, but now you'll be able to get it on the regular hatch. The base model is going to get a 7-inch standard LCD. Blind spot monitoring is available only in EXL and Sport Touring, and LX and Sport will only get the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. That's not too much more powerful than a Toyota Corolla. Be sure and let me know what you think about the Civic hatch down in the comment section. I have to say that I'm really glad that Honda is so dedicated to the sedan. Other manufacturers have been fleeing the sedan segment, and that's actually good for Honda because they've been able to coalesce sales of sedans right around their brand. And again, at this point in time, about a third of compact sedans going off the dealer lot are Hondas. That's enabled them to give us the feature set and the same sort of options that we find on the Civic. Because if everybody was still playing in the sedan and hatch market, Honda sales probably would be considerably down from where they are. Nobody really seems to be buying a sedan in America, but keeping the sedan sales healthy mean that we're going to get a hatchback, we're going to get 2 engines, we're going to get a manual transmission, and we're going to get performance options of the Civic at some point in the future. Honda has not really been horribly specific about which performance options we'll get, but they have been implying that we will probably get a Civic Si and a Civic Type R at some point in the future. And because of the synergies between the Civic hatch and the sedan in this generation, they're being built in the same factory, they share very, very much the same design, you can logically expect that perhaps both of those will be available in both body formats. We just don't know details just yet. It's entirely possible that we could get a Type R Civic hatch and not a Type R sedan, but it's also possible that we could get both. We just don't know yet. Be sure and let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below. And of course, stay tuned because I will have a full review of this just as soon as I can get my hands on one and drive it on the road. You can also check out my Honda Civic sedan video. That is based on a vehicle right like the silver one. In fact, it's exactly the same color. That will already be on the channel. I'll see all of you later.